my homage to the gem of the Supreme Buddha. The Buddha is my refuge every day. May my homage to the gem of the Supreme Dhamma. The Dhamma is my refuge every day. May my homage to the gem of the Supreme Sangha. The Sangha is my refuge every day. May my homage to the Supreme Triple Gem. The Triple Gem is my refuge every day. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Samanta Chakkavalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Saddhammang Munirajas Sunantu Saggamokhadang Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta. May all divine beings arrive here to listen to sublime Dhamma expounded by the fully enlightened one. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Honor to the Supreme Buddha, the Blessed One, the Exalted One, the fully enlightened one. Meritorious devotees, Dhamma friends, today is the greatest day for all the beings in the world. That is due to the fact that the noblest person was born to this world on this Hoya day. Before 2500 years, our Supreme Buddha as the Bodhisattva appeared in the world from the Tusita heaven, having come to the human world from Tusita heaven to the womb of Queen Maya on Asalapoya day, being there 10 months, and after completion of that duration, he was born to this world. Having completed 10 perfections, eons and eons of time, Supremely Enlightened One, our Supreme Buddha, appeared on this earth, this world, because in order to rescue, free these beings who are suffering. First and foremost, the first affirmation, Niyata Vivarana, was taken by our Bodhisattva during the period of Arahat Deepankara Samma Sambuddha. On that occasion, he was a hermit named Sumedha. He could have attained Nibbana having listened to sublime Dhamma of that particular Supreme Buddha. But he did not want to do so. He wanted to rotate in samsara with suffering, undergoing suffering by completing 10 perfections in order to rescue many more beings who are suffering. So with bonhomie, the kindness, loving kindness, equanimity, and with various qualities, he was traveling in this dangerous sansaric life. Sometimes was born in animal plane also, and sometimes he was born in heavenly plane and Brahma world and human plane. But suffering, he had to undergo suffering. Why he suffered? He suffered on behalf of us. Therefore, this is the greatest being ever born to this world. On this Hoya day, that is why is the greatest day for all of us. So Supreme Buddhas or Bodhisattva's birth and Hermit Siddhartha's enlightenment and the Supreme Buddha's passing away took place on this Vesak full moon Poya day. And also meritorious devotees. On the Parinibbana day, or the passing away of the Supreme Buddha, that day another very important thing happened. That is important to Sri Lankans. That is the fact that King Vijaya and his retinue of 700 persons came to Sri Lanka on this day. Because this land is very important as the Supreme Buddha's Dhamma survive in this land. That was seen by divine eye of the Supreme Buddha. That is why on that Vesak full moon Poya day, when he was about to pass away, on the passing away bed, he mentioned to the god Sakra, Patitissati Devinda Lankaya Mama Sasanam. O Lord, my dispensation will continue in Sri Lanka. Therefore, Rakkatu Saparivaranta, you have to protect the retinue and the King Vijaya as long as they are the one who they are the persons, the first inhabitants of our country, and who will start the kind of generation which will flourish with the Dhamma of the Supreme Buddha. Now, that is how this come into being, this civilization, this Buddhist civilization. So, this began during the period of King Devanampiatissa, when King Dhammasoka or Dharmasoka or the Emperor Asoka was ruling in India. His son, beloved son, who became an Arahant, named Sattukappa Kalyanamitta, the noble friend, and Anubuddhu, the Maha Mahindatera. He brought Buddhism to Sri Lanka in the 3rd century BC. Then this land became a very noblest, very noble land in the earth, on the earth. Now, among all the countries in the world, the best land is Sri Lanka, even though people cannot understand. Because even though the Buddha was born in India, the Dhamma does not continue there. That is a kind of natural thing, because Buddhas are born in that huge area, territory, India. But the Dhamma continue, dispensation continue in this small land called Sri Lanka. Even the, Kakusanda Buddha's dispensation, Konagamana Buddha's dispensation, Kashyapa Buddha's dispensation continue in Sri Lanka. Now this Gautama Buddha's dispensation also is continuing in Sri Lanka. After this dispensation, another dispensation appear, that is Maitreya Buddha's dispensation. That will also last long in our small country, motherland. Therefore, we are very fortunate persons in the world. Unfortunately, people do not understand this factor. People are running after money, running after fame, running after other material things. They do not want to run after spiritual things. We have to actually run after wholesome things. especially we want merits in order to get rid of this sansaric life. The message of the Buddha, the Supreme Buddha's, lesson, the Supreme Buddha put forward the greatest lesson to us, that is, world is impermanent, world is suffering, world is soulless. Therefore, we have to get rid of this world, get rid of this sansaric life. In order to get rid of this sansaric life, we have to practice Dhamma. We have to have merits to do so. Therefore, we have to run after merits. We have to run after wholesome things rather than running after other material gains. Unfortunately, people want material gains. Therefore, when there is any crisis in the country, they tend to leave the country and go to other countries looking for pleasurable lives. Those are all sorts of things are, not permanent. They are impermanent. What is permanent is eternal bliss of Nibbana. So eternal bliss of Nibbana can be gained by following the Noble Eightfold Path expounded by the fully enlightened one. So by following the Noble Eightfold Path, the Bodhisattva attain Nibbana or enlightenment on this Vesak full moon Poya-day. Therefore, we have to know this greatest being ever born to this world. On this Vesak full moon Poya-day, we have to determine, we have to take refuge in the Supreme Buddha wholeheartedly. We have to take refuge in the sublime Dhamma wholeheartedly. We have to take refuge in the noble Sangha wholeheartedly. It is very difficult thing to take refuge in the Triple Gem wholeheartedly. By just, uttering Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhamman Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, one cannot take refuge in the Triple Gem wholeheartedly. We have to know the 9 qualities of the Supreme Buddha, 6 qualities of the sublime Dhamma, and 9 qualities of the noble Sangha before taking refuge in the Triple Gem wholeheartedly. Unfortunately, majority of persons who call themselves Buddhists are unaware of the 9 qualities of the Supreme Buddha. They tend to think Buddhism is something very, cheap thing. By just knowing 1 stanza, 2 stanza, 3 stanza, or something, one discourse, 2 discourses, like that, people tend to think, I also know Buddhism. But don't think like that. The Supreme Buddha has expounded, more than 700 and 17,000 discourses, 17,705 discourses. Approximately 18,000 discourses are delivered, expounded by the Supreme Buddha. People do not know these things. Now, we are very happy that we got an opportunity to read these discourses. Earlier on, when we studying in the Pirivenas, universities, in other institutes, we did not get any chance to read these discourses. But having understood the value of these discourses, and this Dhamma was, understood by the Supreme Buddha, comprehended by the Supreme Buddha by completing 10 perfections, years and years of time, then we understood we have to know this sublime Dhamma before our death. That is why we started to read the canonical texts, and then we get to know, to a certain extent, the sublime Dhamma expounded by the Supreme Buddha. On this Vesak full moon Poya-day, you have to understand, the sublime Dhamma is not in some of the, preachers' sermons. Sublime Dhamma is in the canonical text, Tripitaka. Tripitaka is still available. Tripitakas are available. canonical texts. Some people tend to criticize the Supreme Buddha, whether they are shaky, they are suspicious about the sublime Dhamma, because they are arguing out, we do not know whether the sublime Dhamma is there in those books, because the Dhamma was written after some centuries later of the passing away of the Buddha. So how can you say the Dhamma is there properly like that? People tend to claim. But Dhamma friends, you have to understand, this sublime Dhamma has been memorized by not worldly persons, but the Arahants who are freed from lust, hatred and delusion completely. So never ever the Arahants, the disciples of the Supreme Buddha, edit or include or add or do something bad to sublime Dhamma of the Supreme Buddha. So what is expounded by the Supreme Buddha, they memorized, and finally they recorded them in Matale Aluvihara in Matale during King Valagambahu period. When we read the discourses, we can understand Supreme Buddha's language is there in all the discourses. Now, for example, you cannot add, divide or do anything to this sublime Dhamma, because one can, if one do something like that, any interpolations, one can understand that is damage. For example, very, very simple example I can give, there are songs, but sometimes that particular original song can be heard in a different way with another band. Then people know, this song is not the original one. In that way, sometimes people tend to say this song has been rapped. Now, in that way, if we are talking about a mere song in that way, what about this sublime Dhamma? Therefore, the sublime Dhamma of the Supreme Buddha, Dhamma friends, is still available. That is the greatest thing, greatest advantage that we have obtained as a human being these days. What we have to do is to study this Dhamma, not to pass examinations, but to comprehend and get rid of this samsaric life. Now, for example, I can say the Supreme Buddha's language is a different language, a Pali language, but in a different era. Now, the Supreme Buddha's Pali language of that era and the Pali language that of Mahavansa and Deepavansa, Chulavansa, that era are different. Even Sinhala, now for example, Sigiri graffiti, Sigiri Kurutugi, during that period that language is different. Beam Nagi Belumo, like that. And at that time, Sinhala, now there it is mentioned Agata Anagata Chatudisa Sagasadine, that language. That means to the Mahasangha offered this cave, the Mahasangha who will come later and who have already come, and this for the Mahasangha, all the Sangha coming from four corners, this cave has been offered. But that language is different. But Supreme Buddha's, in that way, Dhamma friends, Supreme Buddha's language at that time is different. That language and another language, the changes, the kind of differences taken place due to various, due to various factors can be understood. Time to time, the words are changed. But Magadhi language, the Buddha used, employed, is there. Asevanacha balanam panditanancha sevana. Pujacha pujaniyanam etam mangalamuttama. Not to associate bad friends, associate good friends. Respect those who deserve it are blessings, are the factors of blessings. And in Sanjutta Nikaya, Chakkum Bhikkave Aniccham. I is impermanent. Yada Nicchan Tan Dukkam. If something is impermanent, that is suffering. Yan Dukkam Tadanatta. If something is suffering, that is soulless. Yadanattatan Tadanattatan Netam Mama. If something is soulless, that is not I, not mine, not myself. Netam mama neto hamasmi nameso attati eva metan yata bhutan sammappanyaya dattappan. That should be understood with wise mind. Now, sotam bhikkave aniccan, ganam bhikkave aniccan, like that, same language, same way of explanations. Nobody can include something into it, nobody can divide it, or nobody can distract it from that original teachings. Therefore, Supreme Buddha's original teachings are still available in these canonical texts. If you want to study this Dhamma, you have to read discourses. And Abhidhamma is delivered to the divine beings. It can be understood by the divine beings properly. For the human beings, there are more than 17,000 discourses, around 18,000 discourses. But our people want to pay attention on something that they cannot understand. That is the thing. So the Sastru or the teacher after passing away of the Supreme Buddha is Dhamma and discipline. So Dhamma and discipline are still available. Therefore, we have to really understand these things. On this Vesak full moon Poya day, I want to emphasize, because people are misled by various Buddhist monks and various lay people these days using social media. So if you are actually, sometimes you get cheated from these social media. Some of the people's, some of the Buddhist monks' ideologies, don't get cheated from them, get deceived from them. The deception is taken place these days in the world, unforeseen deception. So don't be a victim of that. Don't victimize to them. You have to follow the sublime Dhamma. Therefore, you have to take refuge in the Triple Gem wholeheartedly. So there are two ways of offering to the Supreme Buddha on this day. One way is by practice, patipatti puja. Other one is by offering, amisa puja. So by, sometimes some people arrange dansels, some people arrange various pinkama, put up Vesak candles, put up Vesak lanterns, various things. Now, they are okay. But when you engage in these things, you have to always recollect the 9 qualities of the sublime Supreme Buddha. 9 qualities. And also, most important thing is Patipatti Puja. That means you have to observe sil. And you have to meditate, contemplate on the Satipatthana. That means contemplation of the body, Kaya Anupassana, contemplation of the feelings, Vedana Anupassana, contemplation of the mind, Chitta Anupassana, contemplation of the mind objects, Dhamma Anupassana. Or you have to practice meditation on the Supreme Buddha, Buddha Anussati, meditation on the Dhamma, Dhamma Anussati. meditation on the Sangha, Sangha Anussati, meditation on the meditation on how you can go to heaven, Devata Anussati, meditation on breathing in, breathing out, Anapanasati, meditation on loving kindness, Maitri, meditation on Vipassana, about 6 faculties, Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, like that. You have to spend this day and spend all the days with Patipatti Puja. The highest puja is Patipatti Puja or Patipatti Puja. Practice Dhamma. So this day is the greatest day for all the Buddhists. On this day we have to remember that we are about to die one day. We are about to die one day. Therefore we have to practice meditation on death always. Then we can actually correct ourselves, rectify ourselves by removing the bad qualities that are in us, and we can practice good things in us when we practice the Marana Sati, the death, remembering death always. Therefore this day is the greatest day for all of us, because the 3 cardinal occurrences took place on this day, and some other greatest things occur on this day. The Sri Lankan, this generation started on this day. The Sinhala Buddhists started on this day. That is how the dispensation is continuing due to this generation. And only on the other hand, the enshrinement of the Mahasaya, Ruwanwali Mahasaya, the relics took place on this Vesak full moon poet day, just like there are various important occurrences took place on this poet day. Therefore, we have to practice Dhamma, take refuge in the Triple Gem wholeheartedly, do 3 meritorious deeds, offering, dana, practicing virtue, sila, and meditation, bhavana, like that, and also attend on your parents properly. Do these things and try to go to be born in a pleasurable plane first and foremost, and then we have to try to put an end to this dangerous sansaric life. May the Noble Triple Gem bless with you all. Akasattha ca Bummatta Devanaga Mahiddhika Punyantang Anumoditva Chiran Rakhantu Buddha Sasanang. Akasattha ca Bummatta Devanaga Mahiddhika Punyantang Anumoditva Chiran Rakhantu Buddha Desanang. Akasattha ca Bummatta Devanaga Mahiddhika Punyantang Anumoditva Chiran Rakhantu Tang Sada. May you all be well and happy.